Welcome to another Bliss Travelers episode. It's a podcast, and tonight we come to you. It's me and my husband Chuck, and we're talking about a little deeper than the quantum imprinting. We're talking about a quantum, what would you call it, reprinting and the shadow. So with that being said, we were in the car earlier today, and we were talking about a lot of different topics about the world and about how to change the bigger things, the politics, the killing, the world thing. And what were you saying, Chuck, about that?
Just that, like what people's perceptions are, like with the things with world leaders and wars and things like that. Like sometimes positive people like myself would want to not look or be aware of that because it's negative. And yet at the same time, it seems like if you don't notice it or are aware of it, you can't make a change of it. And then there's the debate on, well, if you want change, you start with yourself. So if you change with yourself or for yourself, then the world will be changed, or your perception will change of the world. And I kind of wrestle with that a little, because I'm by no means a saint or nothing like that. But I still think that if you change, went from, like, say, a drunken life or something like that, and sobered up some, I don't think that necessarily sobers up your government or world leaders or politics in general. So we just talked about whether or not it's kind of like something you attract, or is it really there? And by saying, well, I'm only going to look at the positives, doesn't that really kind of just equate it to saying, well, I'm going to sit in a closet and meditate about this and pray for it? Almost like if you had a surveillance system, really kick-ass house, really kick-ass surveillance system, and you and your child are home alone, and you see on the surveillance system van pull up and 8 guys break out, and there's crowbars in their hands and everything. They're ready to break into your house. So you, of course, go like into that safety room or whatever like that to protect you. But if we did that, like kind of like in the world, if you just like went into a closet and kind of prayed or pretended that these people weren't breaking in, it doesn't change anything. When you come out, your house is still ransacked. They took whatever they took. So I just find it kind of weird that people kind of look at it that way.
And then we were eating tacos, so we decided to make the show, what'd you say, Taco the Town? Taco the Town, and then he said, let's talk about it. So we're tacoing about it after we ate tacos. And so I just did a post on the Bliss Travelers Mastermind group today, and it was on the shadow. And that's where I equate it on a collective consciousness. It's a shadow. And my belief is that you do have to go within to change yourself. And as you do that, it changes the world. However, I also believe you have to face the shadow. And that shadow part is our anger, our fear, our lust, our jealousy. And I talk lust, not like, oh, baby, like good lust. I'm talking, the kind that gets people in lots of trouble, and jealousy and envy and comparison and all those things we try to shove down as positive quantum believers in law of attraction or in Jesus or in whatever religion you're in, and we try to Pollyanna it, and the shadow then screams to come out. It puts it in your dreams, and it does this stuff, and I equate the macrocosm level of the world into the microcosm of self. So that was our debate, whether it's a macrocosm of the shadow of each individual collective thought that goes on within us. So, yeah, what do you think about those apples, Chuck?
The shadow, just to me, then in those terms, just sounds like an ego or something like that.
But do we kill the ego?
I don't think it matters if one person's like, look at Eckhart Tolle. Okay, he slayed his ego. Is this world still full of lying politicians? Yes. Did he cure the world? No. So to do something, you've got to be aware of it and to change it. You know, it's kind of like if you had cavities or whatever growing on a tooth. Would you say, well, let's look at all the other teeth that are healthy, and the cavity would just magically go away? I'm not sure how that works.
I kind of see it like a cancer, and I believe like our thoughts could cure cancer. You know, like if we go into the other dimension, there's probably a perfect world or a heaven or however, whatever type of belief system you tend to use. You know, there's what was that, Wonderland? Yeah, that post I had on Wonderland. But anyway, you know, there's that that archetype of that perfect place and that utopia, and we're not there yet. And so our debate, or not even a debate, our conversation, our let's talk about it conversation, we had some killer tacos, by the way, but anyway, was on how to effectively change the world and change ourselves and still be real and authentic.
Yeah, like without necessarily judging people, just what politicians or world leaders, supposedly world leaders, are doing nowadays. And do we become aware of it? Do we stand up to corruption and lies and chemtrails and poisonings? Or do we just look at the rose and observe it for what it is, you know? So, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the other day, because I was gonna, when I started this quantum imprinting technology, we started this with the Bliss system. So, got the psychology, the life coaching. Chuck was doing the subliminals, like we said on our last podcast, and that was more of an I am type of statement. But that doesn't, again, face the shadow, does it? Like I am a millionaire living in a big house, and I have all the things I need in life, and everybody loves me, and no problems ever touch me. And that's more of a denial mechanism than actual growth. I mean, it's awesome to do, but it's got to be balanced with facing the parts of you that you feel that are unlovable and loving that. And that's kind of my take on the world. So when I started the quantum, the reprinting, I went down into my subconscious mind, and I went through a lot of parts of my life, but the biggest one that sticks out to me was my mom's death. And I went and I rewrote it. Now, I did this in my consciousness, in my mind, under a hypnotic type of meditation that I do. And it's not hard. I teach people how to do this for themselves. But I went and changed the circumstances around her death. Now, 2 days before she died, I was just crazy. We were fighting. I was working in timeshare. There was a lot of stress. I was blaming and projecting onto everybody. And so the day before she died, I wouldn't even talk. I mean, I literally said 3 words 2 days before she died. I said, I love you, you're beautiful. And what was that other word I said? I love you, you're beautiful, and another positive affirmation. But that's all I would say. I wouldn't talk. And she thought I was having a nervous breakdown because I wasn't going to open my mouth. And then she got really sick that night. And the next day, I was just crazy. Like, how are we going to do this? And this is what's going on. And I'm stressed out. And she died the next day. She went in an ambulance and she never came out. And she left. She left planet Earth. So in my new reality that I went through in the quantum jumping field of quantum reprinting, imprinting, was I made up a story. And in this case, she was able to sit us all down, the kids, me, Chuck, everybody. And we were able to express our gratitude. And I like that story better. I like rewriting the story because it releases, I had to face the shadow. I had to go back in my memory to see the feelings of the guilt, the shame. I thought I caused her death in some subconscious form. I didn't even realize I still felt that way. So I had to face my shadow. But I rewrote the story to a better storyline, and I put on the role in the movie that she sat us down and said, I have to leave. I have a mission. God's calling me. I have a mission. I'm going to miss you guys. And it just seems like a better storyline. Now, you're big into the cannabis movement. And with the pharmaceutical industry. And that's why I put one of your pictures on here, because you also look at the chemtrails. I tend not to look at that stuff, but that's where we get along, because we're kind of balanced that way, like the yin and yang parts.
Herc and jerk.
Herc and jerk. What's your take on the reprinting and about like how that would work with maybe the chemtrails and and the poisons and the fluoride and the vaccines? I'm anti-vaccine, and my daughter's going to get one, and she says 1 billion people get them, so she's pregnant. So there's nothing I can do about that, but trust that she'll be fine. So what do you think about all that?
I don't know what the imprinting or reprinting. I think this is kind of like a huge test as to who's going to speak up, who's going to stand out, and who's going to stay quiet and not question anything. And I just don't understand why they would tell you, like, even smoking indoors, even if it's cigarettes, okay, we know that what those have in them, but they want to talk and make laws like that, but then they'll turn around and spray chemtrails all over us. So I don't get that. I think it's hypocritical. I think cannabis should be legal.
And how do we change well, it is legal here.
Well, I mean, all along, I mean, you know, for decades they've been spraying chemtrails, and all this time they've been trying to lie and brainwash people into the dangers of marijuana. And even though it's legal here, it's not legal totally nationally yet.
Yeah, I don't smoke pot, but that's not because I don't believe that it should be legal. I think like anything, ginseng and coffee, and it could be anything.
Yeah, maybe a stimulant.
It could be anything. There is control mechanisms. So those were some battles we're going through. What do you think about that quantum reprinting technique?
I think that's really impressive. I think that's awesome. I don't know if I could go back and change the government or the laws.
Yeah, we should do that collectively. That would work. But what if you did it within yourself?
And if it don't work, we can always just take the politicians and throw them in dumpsters like they do in the UK or wherever that is.
In dumpsters? That sounds pretty barbaric.
But selling your country out for oil and own millions like the current candidates, that's barbaric. So.
You know, yeah. So how you doing, Chuck?
Good.
So we have a practice, and Chuck is the talent excavator, and I tend to go more into the hypnosis and the life coaching. I've been doing it for a long time. I work on myself a lot. First, you have to work on yourself, and I think that's something we both agree on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That you have to be able to work on yourself, and then you could change things. You could. And what do you think about the fight? Like, do you think like activism's the way? When I mean activism, fighting against chemtrails, fighting against the government, fighting against the corrupt politicians that are just like I heard. Anyway, I won't even go into what I heard today. But yeah, I filter myself from that stuff a lot because I don't want to put it in my consciousness. However, you can't not be aware of it. I live in this world. I'd have to go hide in a cave not to be aware of some of this, and I am going to vote.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is awareness. You got to make people aware. And if they're fighting to keep it illegal, like pharmaceutical industries, you got to fight to make it legal. At one point in time, it was illegal to not grow it. You got to expose the corrupt. You have to expose people.
And how do you do that? With an angry tone or with a loving tone?
Just the loving tone.
Yeah, that's again with the shadow today. I had a lot. Every time I do something, like every day, I'm on a 40-day shift your reality challenge, and there's been a lot of positive, like just the law of gratitude and the writing your life and the vision boards, and I haven't even gotten into the imprinting part yet because I'm kind of layering this. But today it was on the shadow, and every time I do something that I know it's going to bring up my own crap, can't stand it because I know this is going to happen when I post it,
Mm-hmm.
And then I start to feel that even to do this podcast, like I was just feeling a funk for the last 2 days, and no matter what imprinting technique, this stuff shifts into your life and it changes slowly, and it could be quickly too, but it's not, I would call it practical magic. Because there's a practical side to everything, and then there's a prayer, quantum, vibratory side of everything. And the data we put in, I fully believe, is the data that comes out. So we have some interesting talks because we're kind of polar opposites in certain respects. But that doesn't mean I don't have a shadow. Maybe I just stuff mine down a little more.
Well, I think we're both spiritual because of our backgrounds. You're heavy psychological because of your schooling and stuff, but I'm almost strictly spiritually intuitive and not so bookish.
Yeah, you don't go by the book.
No.
At all.
No.
And so we started this company. It started out, I wanted to, he says that I could be a narcissist. I don't think I'm narcissistic whatsoever.
No. Well, I think also too because of our backgrounds, like I've with recovery and stuff too. I just think I lost my train of thought.
Well, anyway, I think I'm confident. And so we started, I was going to name it Neo Mastery because I believe you have to be a master eventually. You can't always be the student. You have to eventually have the confidence to master whatever it is you're going to do. And that's your life. That's your finances. You take responsibility, and it would be practical magic because you have to take the steps of responsibility. And so hiding, when Chuck talks about hiding my head in the sand, I'm like, yeah, no, I go to work every day. I work on my off hours building businesses. I write books because I don't bury my head in the sand. I believe in responsibility and accountability. But the magic part is the healing of your inner self, the soul part.
Yeah, and what I was getting at earlier with the recovery thing is some people make the mistake of kind of like staying in it. It's okay to go in the past and find your splinter, but you are the one that's going to make it infectious. You're the one that's going to live there, or you can just observe it and walk away. You don't have to live in any shadow or anything like that.
And with the country, that would be the same thing, to be aware of it and then take a positive action to change it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by making people aware.
However it is, whatever the root is, you have to kind of pull the cancer out. You have to pull the root of the problem, the corruption, the part of our own soul that has that. But that doesn't mean not to love the shadow. It's fighting to be acknowledged. So the point of the technique that I do is to rewrite the story, but you still have your own story. But with the shadow, the point is, I was watching Matt Kahn last night, and he had one on respecting the shadow. And to respect it, when you feel anger or rage or jealousy or judgment, instead of shoving this stuff down and pretending, even as a coach, pretending like, oh, it's all glossy perfect on the outside and perfect on the inside, we all have those feelings. Every single human being on this planet has anger, has fear, has frustration. But as you integrate it, it loses its charge. So the point of the imprinting session, or not the quantum imprinting, because that's going to the future and imprinting a future and drawing those vibratory. But the reprinting is going to the past. Get it?
Mm-hmm.
Imprinting, reprinting. So I'm rewriting the story of my past. Does that take away the story that happened? No, I still remember it. It's there. But I also remember the new reality that I like better. And I just like that. My mom got to say goodbye, and we got to tell her how grateful we were for her. And instead of going in an ambulance and dying on the way to the hospital, she walked away and ascended, and she went on to her mission. And that was in my imagination. But our subconscious mind does not know the difference between imagination and reality. At our cellular level, the cells hold on to this trauma. It holds on to trauma. And in order to heal the trauma, like animals do, they shake it off, or they go through their whole body, releases the trauma all at once. And us as humans, we haven't learned to do that. By reprinting it and doing a new story, you start to loosen the traumatic effects that are held in each and every cell of our body. And each one is almost like, remember we watched that cloning thing last night? Mm-hmm. You didn't, but I did. But you started it. So I know you are, but what am I? I know I am, but what am I? But anyway, the cloning, each cell is almost a clone, and it holds on to the trauma, and not just in our mind, it holds it in our body too, and it goes somewhere. So with that being said, this was our conversation. What do you take out of that? Do you think we should be activists and fight, or do you think there's trauma that needs to be released?
Not even fight. Just make people aware. Wake people up.
Yeah. And that's by getting on YouTube and doing things like this.
And changing yourself. You have to change yourself too, but don't wait to speak out. If you saw somebody abusing somebody, you can't say, well, I got that bottle of vodka under my cabinet back home, so I shouldn't speak out about that fire going on or somebody burning down somebody's house. That just doesn't make sense.
They used to call that the big elephant in the living room when people ignored it. So we here hope that you have a really, really good night. And if you want any information on the quantum imprinting and the quantum reprinting, or transformative coaching, you could go to theblisstravelers.com. That is theblisstravelers.com. And if you want to talk to Chuck about the talent excavating and getting some of your buried talents out, tell them
Self-subliminals.
The self-subliminals. Tell them how that goes real quick.
We pretty much gather the information from you about what it is you want to change or improve, and we go through a script, and it's tailor-made for you, and it's recorded in your voice with the background music or nature sounds of your choice, and it's your own self-subliminal script recordings.
So I hope that you enjoy tacos tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about that too. Was that a racist? Because we put a meme up, and our last name's Orozco, and I think people have to lighten up a little because everything's about something now.
Everybody's offended.
Everybody's offended. Yeah. So offense is another of those shadows where you want to be offended, and it becomes into more of a blame instead of just get over it. Chill. Be in bliss. So our future plans are a wellness center. We're doing it online first. We'll have some products up on our website. And then we hope to go nationwide, and we'll be in every city. So we'll be traveling and doing the coaching on the road, and we'll be available. Right now, we coach by Skype and by phone, and you could find the rates. For the listeners, you will get 20% off tonight if you call me within the next week. And I will honor it through this podcast. But again, you could go to theblisstravelers.com. And then once we're on the road, I would say then we'll be able to do some live coaching sessions in your city. So watch for future webinars and things of that sort. So I hope you're having an awesome night, and we will talk to you soon.
And stay blessed.
Yeah, stay blessed. May you be blessed.